The capture. The harsh winds of Kepler 186f whipped across the barren landscape, carrying with them the acrid scent of alien industry. Amidst the swirling dust and debris, a solitary figure trudged forward, each step a testament to human perseverance. Dr. Eleanor Reeves, her weathered face etched with lines of wisdom and determination, pressed on despite the hostile environment. At 73 years old, Eleanor was far from the typical image of a resistance fighter. Her silver hair, tied back in a simple bun, and her stooped posture belied the keen intellect and indomitable spirit that had made her the most valuable asset in humanity's struggle against the Zirconian Empire. The Zirconians, a technologically advanced species from a distant galaxy, had arrived on Earth 50 years ago. Initially presenting themselves as peaceful explorers, they quickly revealed their true nature: conquerors seeking to exploit Earth's resources and subjugate its population. Their superior technology and ruthless tactics had overwhelmed Earth's defenses, forcing humanity to adapt or perish. Eleanor, once a brilliant xenobiologist, had become the architect of humanity's resistance. Her deep understanding of alien biology and technology had allowed her to develop strategies that kept hope alive in the darkest of times. Now she was embarking on her most daring mission yet. As she approached the perimeter of the Zirconian outpost, Eleanor activated a small device hidden within the folds of her tattered clothing. The device, a marvel of human ingenuity, began to emit a low-frequency pulse designed to interfere with Zirconian sensory equipment. It was a calculated risk. If it worked, it would allow her to slip past their defenses undetected. If it failed, she would be at their mercy. Luck, it seemed, was not on Eleanor's side today. As she crested a small hill, she found herself face to face with a Zirconian patrol. The aliens, towering beings with iridescent scales and multiple compound eyes, regarded her with a mixture of surprise and disdain. "Halt, human," the lead Zirconian barked, its translator device rendering its complex vocalizations into harsh, guttural English. "You have entered a restricted area. Surrender immediately." Eleanor raised her hand slowly, adopting an expression of confusion and fear. "Please," she stammered, her voice quavering. "I'm lost. I didn't mean to trespass. I'm just an old woman looking for shelter." The Zirconians exchanged glances, their compound eyes flickering with amusement. "Another stray," one of them chittered. "The humans grow more pathetic by the day." As they approached to restrain her, Eleanor allowed herself a small, hidden smile. Phase 1 of her plan was complete. The Zirconians, in their arrogance, saw only a frail old human. They couldn't have imagined that they were taking into custody the very person who could bring their empire to its knees. The aliens roughly bound Eleanor's hands and began to march her towards their outpost. As they walked, she took careful note of their security measures, the placement of their sensor arrays, and the patterns of their patrols. Every piece of information was crucial, and her trained mind catalogued it all. The Zirconian outpost loomed before them, a massive structure of gleaming metal and pulsing energy fields. It was a testament to their technological prowess, a stark contrast to the ruined human cities that dotted the landscape. As they passed through layers of security, Eleanor marveled at the complexity of their systems. Yet she also saw the flaws, the vulnerabilities that arose from overconfidence. They led her to a holding cell, a stark, metallic room devoid of comfort. As the energy field buzzed to life, sealing her inside, Eleanor heard the Zirconians discussing her fate. "Should we inform command?" one asked. "Why bother?" another replied. "It's just an old human. We'll process her with the others in the morning." As their footsteps faded away, Eleanor allowed herself to relax slightly. She reached into a hidden pocket and withdrew a small, innocuous-looking device. To the casual observer, it might have appeared to be nothing more than a simple timepiece. In reality, it was the culmination of years of reverse-engineered Zirconian technology. With deft movements belying her apparent frailty, Eleanor began to manipulate the device. It sprang to life, projecting a holographic interface that only she could see. Her fingers danced across the invisible controls, inputting complex algorithms and bypassing security protocols. Slowly but surely, Eleanor began to tap into the Zarkonian network. Information flowed into her device: troop movements, weapon schematics, communication protocols. It was a treasure trove of intelligence that would give the human resistance the edge they desperately needed. As she worked, Eleanor reflected on the long journey that had brought her to this moment. She thought of the colleagues she had lost, the sacrifices that had been made, and the weight of responsibility she carried. The fate of humanity rested on the success of her mission. Hours passed, and Eleanor continued her clandestine work. The Zarkonians, confident in their superiority, never suspected that their most secure facility was being compromised by a prisoner they had dismissed as harmless. As the first light of dawn began to filter through the small window of her cell, Eleanor completed her task. She carefully concealed the device once more and settled back, adopting the pose of a defeated elderly prisoner. Soon, the Zarkonians would come to interrogate her, and the next phase of her plan would begin. Little did the aliens know, but their empire's downfall had already been set in motion. The capture of Dr. Eleanor Reeves would prove to be the greatest mistake the Zarkonians had ever made. The interrogation. The harsh buzz of the energy field deactivating jolted Eleanor from her light sleep. She blinked, feigning disorientation as two Zarkonian guards entered her cell. Their towering forms cast long shadows in the dim light, their scales shimmering with an otherworldly iridescence. "On your feet, human," one of them growled, the translator device around its neck rendering its complex vocalizations into gruff English. "The Inquisitor wishes to speak with you." Eleanor stumbled to her feet, playing the role of a frail, frightened old woman to perfection. As the guards roughly escorted her through the winding corridors of the Zarkonian base, she took careful note of every detail. The layout of the facility, the positioning of security cameras, the patterns of the patrol routes, all of this information would be crucial for the next phase of her plan. They arrived at a large, circular room dominated by an imposing chair in its center. The chair was a marvel of alien technology, bristling with sensors and devices whose purpose Eleanor could only guess at. Standing beside it was a Zarkonian unlike any Eleanor had seen before. Its scales were a deep, midnight blue, and its eyes gleamed with an intelligence that sent a shiver down Eleanor's spine. "I am Inquisitor Zexlor," the alien announced, its voice a sibilant hiss. "And you, human, are going to tell me everything you know about the resistance movement on this miserable planet." Eleanor allowed her eyes to widen in fear. "Please," she whimpered. "I don't know anything. I'm just an old woman who got lost. I have nothing to do with any resistance." Zexlor's mouth twisted into what might have been a smile on a human face, but on the alien visage, it was a terrifying grimace. "We shall see about that. Secure her to the chair." As the guard strapped Eleanor into the interrogation device, she felt a mixture of anticipation and dread. This was the moment of truth. Everything hinged on her ability to withstand whatever the Zarkonians could throw at her, while simultaneously executing the next phase of her plan. The chair hummed to life, and Eleanor felt a tingling sensation spread throughout her body. Zexlor approached, holding a small crystalline device. "This," the Inquisitor explained, almost conversationally, "is a neural probe. It will allow me to sift through your memories, to extract any information you might be reluctant to share. I warn you, the process can be quite uncomfortable for lesser species." Eleanor steeled herself as Zexlor placed the device against her temple. Immediately, she felt a searing pain lance through her mind. Images flashed before her eyes. Memories, both real and fabricated, that she had carefully prepared for this moment. Zexlor's eyes narrowed as he concentrated, sifting through the chaotic stream of information. "Curious," he muttered. "Your mind is unusually ordered for a human, yet I see nothing of value. No knowledge of resistance activities. No military secrets. Eleanor allowed a small whimper to escape her lips, playing up her distress. In reality, her mind was racing, executing complex mental exercises designed to shield her true thoughts and memories from the alien probe. As the interrogation continued, Eleanor began to notice something peculiar. The neural probe, advanced as it was, seemed to be having difficulty processing her brainwaves. She realized, with a jolt of excitement, that this was her opportunity. Slowly, cautiously, Eleanor began to feed false information into the probe. Memories of a peaceful Earth, untouched by Zarkonian invasion. Images of humans and Zarkonians coexisting harmoniously. It was a delicate balance. Too much, and Zexlor would surely notice the deception. But if she could maintain it. Hours passed, and Eleanor could see frustration growing in Zexlor's alien features. The Inquisitor had expected to easily break the mind of this seemingly frail human, but instead found himself confronted with an enigma. Enough. Zexlor finally snarled, deactivating the neural probe. Your mind is a jumble of useless information. Perhaps more. Traditional methods will loosen your tongue. As Zexlor turned to consult with the guards, Eleanor allowed herself a small, hidden smile. Phase 2 of her plan was complete. Not only had she protected the vital information she carried, but she had also managed to plant seeds of doubt and confusion in the Zarkonian systems. The neural probe, connected to the base's central computer, had unwittingly become a conduit for Eleanor's carefully crafted misinformation. Even now, false data was propagating through the Zarkonian networks, creating a smokescreen that would blind them to the truth until it was too late. Zexlor turned back to Eleanor, his alien features set in a mask of determination. We will continue this later, he hissed. Take her back to her cell. No food or water until she decides to cooperate. As the guards unstrapped her from the chair, Eleanor allowed herself to slump, appearing weak and defeated. In reality, her mind was already racing ahead to the next phase of her plan. The Zarkonians had unknowingly given her exactly what she needed: time alone in her cell to set the final pieces of her strategy into motion. Back in the confines of her small cell, Eleanor waited until she was sure she was unobserved. Then, with movements that belied her apparent frailty, she retrieved the hidden device from her clothing. Her fingers danced across its surface, inputting complex commands. The device hummed to life, projecting a faint, shimmering field around Eleanor. It was a quantum entanglement communicator, a piece of technology so advanced that even the Zarkonians hadn't mastered it yet. With it, Eleanor could send a message across vast distances instantaneously, undetectable by any known means. Nightingale to nest, she whispered, using the code names established long ago. The eagle is in the henhouse. I repeat, the eagle is in the henhouse. Prepare for Phase 3. Miles away, in a hidden bunker deep beneath the ruins of what was once New York City, a group of human resistance fighters received Eleanor's message. They sprang into action, knowing that the most crucial part of their plan was about to unfold. As Eleanor settled back onto the hard bench in her cell, she allowed herself a moment of reflection. The pain from the interrogation was real, the dangers she faced were immense, but the spark of hope in her heart burned brighter than ever. Humanity had been pushed to the brink, but they had not broken. And now, thanks to her efforts, they were about to push back. The Zarkonians, in their arrogance, had dismissed her as a harmless old woman. They were about to learn, in the hardest way possible, that underestimating humanity was the biggest mistake they could have ever made. As the lights in her cell dimmed, signaling the onset of the facility's night cycle, Eleanor closed her eyes, not to sleep, but to prepare. The next few hours would determine the fate of her species, and she, Dr. Eleanor Reeves, the unlikeliest of heroes, was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The stage was set. The pieces were in motion, and the Zarkonians had no idea what was about to hit them. The deception. As the artificial dawn broke over the Zarkonian compound, Eleanor Reeves sat in perfect stillness, her eyes closed, her breathing shallow. To the casual observer, she might have appeared to be sleeping or perhaps meditating. In reality, her mind was racing, calculating probabilities, reviewing plans, and preparing for the challenges ahead. The sound of heavy footsteps echoing down the corridor snapped Eleanor out of her reverie. She quickly adopted the posture of a defeated prisoner, hunched and weary. The energy field of her cell flickered and died as two Zarkonian guards entered. "On your feet, human," one of them growled. "The Inquisitor isn't done with you yet." Eleanor stumbled to her feet, allowing a small whimper to escape her lips. As the guards roughly escorted her through the winding corridors, she felt a surge of anticipation. Phase 3 was about to begin. They arrived once again at the circular interrogation chamber. Inquisitor Zexlor stood waiting, his midnight blue scales shimmering in the harsh light. His compound eyes fixed on Eleanor with a mixture of frustration and curiosity. "I hope you've had time to reconsider your stubbornness, human," Zexlor said, his voice a sibilant hiss. "Your resistance is futile and, frankly, becoming tiresome." Eleanor allowed her shoulders to slump further. "Please," she whispered, her voice cracking. "I've told you everything I know. I'm just an old woman. I don't know anything about any resistance." Zexlor's mouth twisted into what might have been a smile on a human face, but on his alien visage, it was a terrifying grimace. "We shall see about that. Strap her in." As the guards secured Eleanor to the interrogation chair, she felt a mixture of fear and exhilaration. Everything hinged on what happened next. Zexlor approached, holding a small crystalline device. "The neural probe. We're going to try something different today," he said, his voice almost conversational. "This setting should make it impossible for you to resist." As the probe touched Eleanor's temple, pain exploded behind her eyes. Images flashed through her mind. Memories, both real and fabricated, swirling in a chaotic maelstrom. But beneath the pain and confusion, Eleanor's iron will held firm. Slowly, carefully, she began to feed false information into the probe. Not obvious lies. Those would be too easily detected. Instead, she offered half-truths, misleading fragments, and carefully constructed false memories. A resistance base that didn't exist. Names of leaders who were long dead. Plans for attacks that would never happen. Hours passed, and Eleanor could see the strain beginning to show on Zexlor's alien features. The Inquisitor had expected to easily break the mind of this seemingly frail human, but instead found himself confronted with an enigma. "Impossible," Zexlor muttered, his eyes narrow slits of frustration. "Your mind. It doesn't make sense. The data. It's contradictory." Eleanor allowed a small moan to escape her lips, playing up her distress. In reality, her mind was working overtime, maintaining the delicate balance of truth and deception. As Zexlor turned to consult the readouts on a nearby console, Eleanor made her move. With a series of rapid blinks, she activated the hidden transmitter embedded in her artificial eye. A burst of data, compressed and encoded, shot out. Undetectable to Zarkonian sensors, but crystal clear to the waiting human resistance. Miles away, in a hidden bunker deep beneath the ruins of what was once New York City, the resistance headquarters burst into action. The data Eleanor had sent contained everything they needed. The layout of the Zarkonian base, security protocols, patrol patterns, and most importantly, the location of the central computer core. Back in the interrogation chamber, Zexlor turned back to Eleanor, frustration evident in every line of his alien body. "Enough of this," he snarled. "We'll try more. Direct methods." As Zexlor reached for a different device, alarms suddenly blared throughout the facility. The Inquisitor's head snapped up, his compound eyes wide with surprise. "What's happening?" he demanded, activating a communication panel. A panicked voice responded, "Inquisitor, we're under attack. Human forces have breached the outer defenses." Zexlor's scales paled, a sight that would have been comical under different circumstances. "Impossible," he hissed. "How could they have found us? How could they have breached our defenses? As chaos erupted around them, Eleanor allowed herself a small, hidden smile. The deception had worked perfectly. While Zexlor had been focused on breaking her, she had been slowly but surely breaking his entire security system. The neural probe, connected to the base's central computer, had become a conduit for Eleanor's carefully crafted misinformation. False data had propagated through the Zarkonian networks, creating blind spots and vulnerabilities that the human resistance was now exploiting. Zexlor turned back to Eleanor, his alien features contorted with rage. "You," he snarled. "Somehow, you did this." Eleanor met his gaze, dropping the facade of the frightened old woman. Her eyes, once clouded with fear, now blazed with determination. "You should have paid more attention in biology class, Inquisitor," she said, her voice strong and clear. "The most dangerous predators are often the ones that don't look threatening." Before Zexlor could respond, a massive explosion rocked the facility. The lights flickered and died, plunging the room into darkness. In the confusion, Eleanor felt the restraints of the interrogation chair loosen. She didn't hesitate. Decades of training took over as she slipped free of the restraints and moved silently through the darkness. Her hand found a weapon, a Zarkonian stun baton dropped by one of the panicked guards. As emergency lights flickered to life, Eleanor found herself face to face with Zexlor. The Inquisitor's eyes widened in shock as he realized his prisoner was free. "Who? What are you?" he gasped. Eleanor allowed herself a grim smile. "I am humanity's reckoning," she said, "and you're about to learn why it's a bad idea to underestimate us." With a swift movement, she activated the stun baton. Zexlor didn't even have time to cry out before he crumpled to the floor, unconscious. As the sounds of battle echoed through the facility, Eleanor made her way to the door. The next phase of the plan was about to begin, and she had a key role to play. The Zarkonians had thought they were interrogating a helpless old woman. Instead, they had given Dr. Eleanor Reeves, xenobiologist, resistance leader, and humanity's secret weapon, exactly what she needed to bring their empire crumbling down. The deception was complete. Now it was time for humanity to show the Zarkonians what they were truly capable of. The revelation. Chaos reigned in the Zarkonian base. Alarms blared, emergency lights flashed, and the sounds of battle echoed through the corridors. Amidst this pandemonium, Dr. Eleanor Reeves moved with purpose, her earlier facade of frailty completely forgotten. With the Zarkonian stun baton in hand, Eleanor navigated the labyrinthine halls of the alien facility. Her mind, sharp as ever, recalled every detail she had memorized during her captivity. She knew exactly where she needed to go. As she rounded a corner, she came face to face with a squad of Zarkonian soldiers. For a moment, both parties froze in surprise. Then, with a speed that belied her age, Eleanor struck. The stun baton hummed to life in her hands, crackling with energy. She moved with the grace of a dancer and the precision of a surgeon, each strike calculated and devastating. In a matter of seconds, the Zarkonian squad lay incapacitated at her feet. Eleanor allowed herself a small smile. "And they thought yoga was just for relaxation," she muttered, continuing on her way. Her destination was the central computer core, the beating heart of the Zarkonian base. As she approached, she could hear the sounds of intense fighting. The human resistance forces had breached the outer defenses and were pushing towards the core. Eleanor paused at a junction, catching her breath. She reached into a hidden pocket and withdrew a small device, the quantum entanglement communicator. "Nightingale to nest," she whispered. "I'm approaching the core. Status report." A voice crackled back, filled with static but unmistakably human. "Nest to Nightingale. We're engaged with heavy Zarkonian resistance. They're throwing everything they have at us." Eleanor nodded to herself. Everything was going according to plan. The Zarkonians were so focused on the frontal assault that they were ignoring the real threat, her. She continued on, moving swiftly and silently. As she approached the core, she encountered less resistance. The Zarkonians had committed most of their forces to repelling the human attack, leaving their most vital systems relatively unguarded. Finally, she reached the entrance to the core. The massive doors were sealed shut, protected by an energy field that shimmered with otherworldly power. To most, it would have seemed an impenetrable barrier. But Eleanor wasn't most people. She approached the control panel, her eyes scanning the alien symbols. Thanks to her years of study, she could read them as easily as English. Her fingers danced across the interface, inputting a complex series of commands. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a low hum, the energy field flickered and died. The massive doors began to slide open. Eleanor stepped into the core room, her eyes widening at the sight before her. The Zarkonian central computer was a marvel of alien technology, a towering structure of crystalline processors and pulsing energy conduits. As she approached the main console, a voice rang out behind her. "Stop right there, human." Eleanor turned slowly to find herself face to face with Commander Vexera, the highest-ranking Zarkonian on the base. The alien's scales were a deep crimson, a sign of his elevated status, and his eyes blazed with fury. "You," Vexera hissed. "You're not just some old human, are you? Who are you really?" Eleanor straightened, dropping all pretense of weakness. "I am Dr. Eleanor Reeves," she declared, her voice ringing with authority. "Xenobiologist, resistance leader, and the architect of your downfall." Vexera's eyes widened in shock. "Impossible," he gasped. "Dr. Reeves died years ago. We made sure of it." Eleanor's lips curled into a grim smile. "Reports of my death were greatly exaggerated, a necessary deception to continue my work." The Zarkonian commander's shock quickly turned to rage. "It doesn't matter," he snarled, raising a weapon. "Your little rebellion ends here. You may have breached our defenses, but you'll never leave this room alive." "Oh, I don't intend to leave just yet," Eleanor replied calmly. "I have one last task to complete." With lightning speed, she spun around and slammed her hand down on the main console. Instantly, the core room came alive with activity. Displays flickered to life, showing streams of data and complex algorithms. Vexera's eyes darted between Eleanor and the displays, confusion evident on his alien features. What are you doing?" Eleanor's fingers flew across the alien interface, inputting commands at a dizzying pace. "I'm giving you a biology lesson, Commander," she said, not taking her eyes off her work. "Specifically about the concept of symbiosis." As she worked, the displays began to change. The streams of alien data were gradually replaced by human characters and symbols. "You see," Eleanor continued, her voice taking on a lecturing tone, "your species made a critical error when you invaded Earth. You saw us as nothing more than primitive beings to be conquered. You never bothered to truly understand us." Vexera raised his weapon, but hesitated, torn between stopping Eleanor and trying to understand what was happening to his systems. "What you fail to realize," Eleanor said, her voice growing stronger, "is that humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our physical abilities. It's our adaptability, our ability to learn, to grow, to evolve." With a final keystroke, Eleanor stepped back from the console. The displays now showed a fusion of Zarkonian and human interfaces working in perfect harmony. "While you were busy trying to subjugate us," Eleanor declared, turning to face the stunned Vexera, "we were studying you, learning your language, your technology, your biology. And now we've done what you thought impossible. We've created a symbiosis between our two technologies." Vexera's weapon clattered to the floor as the implications hit him. "You've merged our systems. But that's impossible." Eleanor finished for him. "I thought we'd established that humans have a habit of doing the impossible." At that moment, the doors to the core room burst open. Human resistance fighters poured in, led by a young woman with fierce determination in her eyes. "Dr. Reeves," the woman called out, "we've secured the base. Are you all right? Eleanor nodded, a proud smile on her face. I'm fine, Sarah, and I believe our Zarkonian friends are about to have a change of heart. As Vexera was taken into custody, Eleanor turned back to the main console. With a few more keystrokes, she activated a communication channel that would broadcast across every Zarkonian frequency. Attention, Zarkonian Empire, she began, her voice calm but filled with authority. This is Dr. Eleanor Reeves of Earth. Your base on Kepler 186f has fallen. But more importantly, we now control your entire network. She paused, allowing her words to sink in. We don't seek your destruction. We seek coexistence. The choice is yours. Continue this war and face defeat, or embrace a new future of cooperation between our species. As Eleanor's message echoed across the stars, she finally allowed herself to feel the weight of her years. She had done it. The plan she had set in motion decades ago had finally come to fruition. The revelation of her true identity and the extent of humanity's capabilities had shaken the Zarkonian Empire to its core. Now, as the dust settled, a new chapter in the relationship between humans and Zarkonians was about to begin. And Dr. Eleanor Reeves, the unlikeliest of heroes, stood ready to lead humanity into this brave new future. The triumph. The days following the fall of the Zarkonian base on Kepler 186 were a whirlwind of activity. Dr. Eleanor Reeves found herself at the center of a storm, coordinating efforts between the human resistance and the now cooperative Zarkonian forces. The alien empire, shaken to its core by the revelation of humanity's true capabilities, had sued for peace. Eleanor's gambit had paid off beyond their wildest expectations. The symbiosis she had created between human and Zarkonian technology had rendered the aliens' superior weaponry useless, while simultaneously opening up new avenues of communication and understanding. As Eleanor stood on the observation deck of the former Zarkonian base, now repurposed as a joint human-alien command center, she couldn't help but marvel at the sight before her. Human scientists worked side by side with Zarkonian engineers, their differences set aside in pursuit of shared knowledge and progress. Sarah, the young resistance fighter who had led the assault on the base, approached Eleanor with a datapad in hand. Dr. Reeves, she said, her voice filled with a mixture of respect and awe. The latest reports from Earth. The Zarkonian forces are withdrawing peacefully. It's really over, isn't it? Eleanor smiled, placing a hand on Sarah's shoulder. This chapter is over, my dear. But our work is just beginning. As if on cue, a tall Zarkonian figure entered the observation deck. It was Vexera, the former commander of the base, now serving as a liaison between his people and the humans. Dr. Reeves, Vexera said, his voice tinged with a newfound respect. The Zarkonian High Council wishes to speak with you. They want to discuss the terms of our new alliance. Eleanor nodded, straightening her posture. Even at her advanced age, she carried herself with a dignity and strength that commanded respect from both humans and aliens alike. Very well, she said. Let's not keep them waiting. As they made their way to the communication chamber, Eleanor reflected on the journey that had brought them to this point. The years of hardship, the sacrifices made, the lives lost, all of it had led to this moment. The chamber was a marvel of joint human-Zarkonian engineering. At its center stood a holographic projector, far more advanced than anything humanity had previously possessed. With a few keystrokes, Vexera activated the device. The air shimmered, and suddenly the room was filled with the towering, translucent forms of the Zarkonian High Council. Their alien features were a mix of curiosity, apprehension, and grudging respect as they regarded Eleanor. Dr. Eleanor Reeves, the lead counselor, began, his voice resonating through the chamber. You have humbled us. In our arrogance, we thought your species primitive, easily conquered. We now stand corrected. Eleanor stepped forward, her head held high. Counselors, she replied, her voice strong and clear. Humanity has never sought conflict with your people. We have always believed that our species could achieve greatness together, rather than in opposition. The lead counselor nodded slowly. Your actions have proven the truth of your words. The symbiosis you created between our technologies, it is unprecedented. We find ourselves eager to learn from you, Dr. Reeves. A small smile played at the corners of Eleanor's mouth. And we are eager to learn from you, counselors. There is so much we can teach each other. Over the next few hours, Eleanor, with input from Sarah and other resistance leaders, negotiated the framework for a new era of human-Zarkonian relations. The aliens would withdraw completely from Earth and its colonies. In exchange, humanity would share the secrets of the technological symbiosis Eleanor had created. But more than that, the two species would embark on joint scientific and exploration missions. The vast knowledge of the cosmos possessed by the Zarkonians would be combined with human ingenuity and adaptability, opening up new frontiers of discovery. As the negotiations concluded, the lead counselor fixed Eleanor with a penetrating gaze. Dr. Reeves, he said, his voice filled with genuine curiosity, there is one thing we still do not understand. How did you, a single human, accomplish all of this? Eleanor's eyes twinkled with a mixture of mischief and wisdom. Counselor, she replied, the greatest mistake one can make is to underestimate their opponent. You saw an old woman and assumed weakness. You never stopped to consider that with age comes experience, knowledge, and a lifetime of preparation. She paused, looking around the room at the assembled humans and Zarkonians. But more than that, I was never alone. Every human who resisted, every scientist who worked in secret, every ordinary person who held on to hope, they were all part of this victory. We triumphed not because of any one individual, but because of our collective strength and spirit. The counselor was silent for a moment, then bowed his head in acknowledgement. We have much to learn from your people, Dr. Reeves. We look forward to a future of mutual understanding and cooperation. As the holographic forms of the High Council faded away, a cheer went up from the humans in the room. Sarah rushed forward, enveloping Eleanor in a tight hug. We did it, Sarah whispered, tears of joy streaming down her face. We really did it. Eleanor returned the embrace, feeling the weight of years lift from her shoulders. Yes, my dear, she said softly. We did. In the days and weeks that followed, the world began to heal. Zarkonian ships, once harbingers of destruction, now descended peacefully to Earth, bringing with them alien scientists and diplomats eager to forge a new relationship with humanity. The scars of war would take time to fade, but already new wonders were emerging from the collaboration between the two species. Diseases once thought incurable were being eradicated. Environmental damage was being reversed at an unprecedented rate, and in the skies above, joint human-Zarkonian crews were preparing for voyages to the farthest reaches of the galaxy. As for Dr. Eleanor Reeves, she found herself busier than ever. There were lectures to give, papers to write, and a whole new generation of both humans and Zarkonians to teach. But she approached each day with the same vigor and determination that had seen her through the darkest days of the invasion. One evening, as she stood watching the sunset from the balcony of her New York apartment, Sarah joined her. The young woman had become something of a protege to Eleanor, eagerly soaking up knowledge about both human and Zarkonian biology. Dr. Reeves, Sarah said, a note of wonder in her voice, did you ever imagine it would turn out like this? When you first started planning all those years ago? Eleanor chuckled softly. My dear, in science we're taught to imagine all possibilities. But I must admit, the reality has exceeded even my wildest dreams. She turned to face Sarah, her eyes bright with the wisdom of years and the excitement of new discoveries yet to come. Remember this, Sarah. The universe is vast and full of wonders, but the greatest wonder of all is the capacity for change, for growth, for understanding. Whether human or Zarkonian or whatever new life we may encounter out there among the stars, we all share that capacity. As the last rays of the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant hues of orange and purple, Eleanor felt a profound sense of peace. The war was over, the healing had begun, and humanity, having faced its greatest challenge, had emerged not just victorious, but transformed. The future stretched out before them, a tapestry of infinite possibilities. And Dr. Eleanor Reeves, the woman who had changed the course of human history, was ready to face that future with open arms and a curious mind. The triumph of humanity was not just in defeating an alien invasion, but in forging a path to a brighter, more inclusive future for all sentient beings. And that, Eleanor knew, was the greatest victory of all.